Let's go!
Hello, Marlins fans, and welcome to this edition of Fish Stripes Live, presented by La Pop. That's LAPOP. As always, I am your host, Daniel, and we have a great guest, or a great panel for everyone watching tonight. Of course, we have Mr. Kevin Barral, Mr. Eli Sussman, our guest tonight, Ryan Schlesinger. You might have heard him on State of the Fish. So good, we had to bring him on. And Miami Sports Stats, Kyle Cruz. Kyle, Ryan, how are you guys feeling making your debuts tonight?
Feeling great and excited to preview the next 4 games for the Marlins and a really tough test against the Atlanta Braves. Probably their toughest test so far, other than having to open the first week of the season with 2 series against the Mets.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here when things are going somewhat positive, right? Happy to be here.
Yeah, and with that, we'll go ahead and look back to the series versus the Cleveland Guardians. We had our very own Grant Keifer over there doing some coverage, so check that out if you want to go back in time and see what happened. But the Marlins did play 3 games. They did win the series, including sweeping the doubleheader, something that has not happened since the COVID season back in 2020. Mr. Kevin, I want you to get us started. Be the leadoff hitter for us. Tell us what you saw from that Guardians series, and let's start from the doubleheader.
Yeah, you said it, Danny. They swept the doubleheader. First time they've done that since 2020. Not sure what was the last time they swept a 9-inning doubleheader, because as we know, a COVID year, you had those 7-inning doubleheaders. But man, Miami played well. There's just no other way to put it. Shout out to Devin Smeltzer, who gave up got a good outing in for the team. Was the opener. We all saw a lot of critique about putting Devin Smeltzer as the opener, and he liked those tweets on Twitter. And look at him, 4 innings, 3 strikeouts. He battled with Shane Bieber, and he beat Shane Bieber. Bryan De La Cruz got a homer in there. You can't be disappointed about that game. That may have been probably the most complete game this team has played this year, just in terms of how good the bullpen was too. And we'll talk more about those guys in a bit. But then game 2, you have Braxton, who put up a nice outing. Wasn't really like his other, but he kept the team in it. And Miami, once again, facing a good pitcher in Zach Plesac, who they kind of rocked towards the end, I guess you could say, scoring the 3 runs there. Bryan De La Cruz, I believe, had another big hit in that game. And then the final game, unfortunately, Miami really couldn't get anything going offensively besides Avi Garcia's 3-run homer. And, just when you thought you had something going, you have to face one of probably the best closer in Major League Baseball, aside from Edwin Diaz, who was unfortunately injured, Emmanuel Clase, and he's just going to shove. And that's exactly what he did in this game. And Luzardo didn't have his best stuff. And, through the first, he had his best stuff in the first 2 innings, got rocked, back-to-back homers from Josh Bell and Jose Ramirez, and vice versa. Jose Ramirez first, then Josh Bell. And then Josh Bell kind of put the nail in the coffin when he thought really Miami had something going. I believe it was an RBI double to drive in Ahmed Rosario. So, and Miami loses that one. But really, just you have to be very proud about how Miami played. You're probably playing the toughest month of the season right now. You've won 4 series in a row. Miami's bullpen is probably looking like one of the best in Major League Baseball right now. And maybe I'm exaggerating, but when you have the setup of Floro, and then you have Puck, or you have someone like Matt Barnes, and then you have Tanner Scott. Sometimes when those guys aren't available, you also have Andrew Nardi, who comes in and high leverage innings, gets those outs that you need. You really can't be disappointed with what you have seen from this team thus far. And 4 series in a row. I believe it's Twins, Giants, Diamondbacks, and now Guardians. 4 pretty good teams besides the Giants, who you expected to win that one.
Yeah, as you said, it's 4 straight series wins, and on the bullpen, the most important thing moving forward is just making sure those guys stay healthy and that you don't overuse them. A big piece of that will be the starters going deep into games. And not to skip ahead, but that's kind of why everybody's laser focused on Sandy and how close he could get to being his usual self, because that has that ripple effect where if he goes deep into games, it allows them to rest guys on certain days. And that's why I'm kind of critical of somebody like Luzardo, who I think a lot of us have very high expectations for. Second straight start where he couldn't even make it through 5 innings. That has that ripple effect where on Sunday, one of the few games where their bullpen allowed a few extra runs, when Luzardo exited the game, it was a 3-run game. And then ultimately, if Soriano throws up zeros again, then maybe that Avi home run in the 8th inning actually matters. And maybe they do pull off a pretty bold comeback in here. Realistically, you can't expect the relievers to be great every time out. And the reason why Soriano had to pitch multiple innings in this one is because Luzardo didn't go deep into the game. And at a certain point, you just need to spread out the workload among the guys that are actually available. You have more guys available when your starters go deep into the game. The starting rotation is the one thing we looked at entering this year. That was going to be the key for this team to reach its highest hopes, is if this rotation is one of the best in baseball. And to this point, they've actually been a little bit underwhelming, and they have had this winning record despite a rotation that is kind of middle of the pack so far. I think there's still a lot of optimism that they'll perform even better moving forward. And so I look at somebody like Luzardo in particular as somebody that I expect more from, for him to get back on track and perform the same way he did last year and the same way that he did earlier this year. But this is now back-to-back starts where he's just been inefficient.
Yeah, let me go to our first guest, Ryan. Ryan, when you're looking at this series, you see Luzardo maybe struggling a bit. What did you see from Luzardo, and especially maybe that last game of that 3-game stretch where they fell to a rookie, a guy who made his debut, Logan Allen from right here at FIU. Just what did you see from the Marlins that game?
Yeah, well, Logan Allen was great. First of all, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run. First of all, any rookie making his starting pitching debut, going 6 innings is just incredible. Usually rookies, they'll get pulled, depending on how they go, obviously, but usually will get pulled after the first 5 innings or so, just trying to work him into the majors. But 6 innings, 5 hits, and 1 walk. The impressive stat, 8 strikeouts. The Marlins really just couldn't hit him. And I think, honestly, Jesus Luzardo not being able to make a great start, 4 1/3 of an inning, and he gave up 8 hits. That just immediately took him out of the game. And now it's been back-to-back starts after it's been back-to-back below average starts for Jesus Luzardo standards after a really good start to the season. And Matt Barnes, he came in to relieve him an inning and 2/3. He was not bad at all, actually. No earned runs, 2 strikeouts, and then Soriano came in, gave up the 2 earned runs, 3 runs total, 5 hits in the 2 innings of work, and now he ended up getting DFA'd, which we'll talk about a little bit more later.
Option. He didn't.
Oh yeah, option. My bad. He didn't.
Don't do my boy like that.
Yeah, he got optioned, but yeah. So Luzardo, I'm still confident in him, but again, I agree with what you guys said. He needs to go deeper into games because he is capable of going deeper into games. But even in some of his outings where he does pitch well and he gives up no earned runs or 1 earned runs, like we saw at the very beginning of the season in his first few starts, he still isn't able to go much past the 6th inning, if past the 6th inning at all. And that's just with repetitions and how he's going to be able to improve throughout his career because he is only 25. Some people may not realize that he's still a really, really young pitcher, and he is our future.
Yeah. Kyle, how did you see the Marlins in terms of hitting wise? They had to go up against Shane Bieber, Zach Plesac, especially Bieber, former Cy Young winner, one of the best pitchers in baseball. How did you see the batters perform this series against the Guardians. Was you impressed at all? Was it something maybe a little bit to be desired from the Fish? What was your takeaway from this series in terms of hitting?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it wasn't big time offensively for the Marlins. It was kind of pedestrian. They're at the bottom runs wise in all of baseball for a reason. And I think the most important thing was, especially in that doubleheader, you saw the Marlins being aggressive. I think for the first time, I won't say the first time all season, but more so than we've seen. They had, I think, 3 hit and runs in that second inning, game 1. Guys like Avi putting together big hits late in the series didn't end up mattering much, but especially early, there was obviously the doubleheader. Things were a little different, and you were seeing different arms than you expected. But I haven't seen the Marlins play aggression-wise to that level, and I think that's what it's going to take in order to. It's going to take some small ball to win some games this season. It's probably a 75-80 win roster that you're trying to make an 87-90 win team, and somehow get over that threshold. And playing like that, and obviously the 1-run wins are part of it, is how the Marlins need to play in order to win. And that's the bright thing. That's the bright spot. But yeah, still you're not getting Soler had the big day. Brian De La Cruz stayed hot until Sunday, but you're going to need those type of performances in order to keep things rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention Jorge Soler. And also, you mentioned small ball. You have to mention John Birdie, who hit the homer in that third game. Garrett Hampson with the RBI. I mean, those guys contributing in some way, shape, or form is nice to see, at least mainly for Hampson, who we did not expect really anything out of already. I believe it's a 127 WRC plus, Eli, if I'm memorizing the number correctly. It may have gone down from his last game, but that's what I remember it at entering Sunday's game at least. So he's been a nice find for the team, I guess you could say. Nice bench bat. Really not much to take away from yet. I would like to see some more of Garrett Hampson if he could continue that consistency, but Soler on Sunday got on base every single time. I think he went 3 for 3 or 3 for 4 with a walk, something like that. He was good, and it's nice to see that he is getting that going. So very impressive, for some specific guys. And it's a 115 WRC plus for Hampson. So still, 15 over league average, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, along with their offense, I think we also have to talk about some of their defense. I believe Eli mentioned this on State of the Fish, how much their defense has, you could say, improved or how different they are compared to what we thought they were going to be coming into this season. Eli, you mentioned about their defense. Just what is it about the Marlins defense that's really maybe catching your eye, or is just almost a completely different thought than how we expected to be coming into this season?
Yeah, I'll probably take time soon to dive into positioning and more nuanced aspects of it. But to this point, I've just, by the eye test, these are guys playing out of position that look better in their unfamiliar positions than I expected. It starts with Jazz, who now at this point has gotten his outs above average and his DRS back to 0 after starting in the negative. He made his worst plays early in the season, and since then, he's been a positive in that aspect to cancel it out, making a wide variety of plays there. This didn't show up in the box score, but the throw that he made in Cleveland to third base was extremely accurate. That's probably one of the weaknesses they can't totally overcome, is his lack of arm strength. And yet, if he's accurate enough with those throws, he can surprise you and potentially come up with some assists as the season goes on. So there's him, and there's Gene Segura, who made, I thought, his best defensive play this season during this Cleveland series as well, going into foul territory, off balance throw and making it there. Garrett Hampson, as you highlighted, his offense defensively as well. The fact that he's playing shortstop yet again, in place of Birdie, with Birdie sliding over to second base, I think that's the appropriate move. I think Hampson might be the best defensive shortstop on the roster right now, and he's shown it in these small samples. Even at first base with Garrett Cooper, in his opportunities, he's been fine over there. And Yuli Gurriel, when they need him, he's been fine over there as well. One of their main, I think, weaknesses to this point has been the catching position. Both Stallings and Fortes overall, in terms of controlling the running game. Stallings breaking the streak for the first time in 3 years, allowing a pass ball. That kind of sticks out to me as the one position that is a little bit underwhelming, is at the catcher spot. Yeah. But overall, this is a pitching staff that's not getting a ton of strikeouts, and yet they've been a good pitching staff. because on balls in play, these guys are coming up and in making plays. In that regard, I think that has allowed them to overperform a little bit than I expected. I don't know exactly what that will look like moving forward with these guys, but to this point, you've guys that in those unfamiliar positions, I just simply making plays that I wasn't counting on them to make.
Yeah, and you mentioned the catcher spot, but I mean, to be honest, Fortes has looked pretty damn good at moments. I know he's caught some pretty good games, and unlike Stallings, Fortes has actually made attempts to throw out hitters. I don't think Stallings has made a single attempt, right, Eli, or maybe one at most. But I know Fortes has definitely, I think, made an attempt that. Oh, there comes Noah.
Stallings has for sure thrown somebody out.
He's thrown someone out.
He backpicked somebody.
Someone at first
base.
Oh yeah. Well, that's about it.
Cool. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
I'm hiding in the background here for anyone that didn't notice. Hi. I'm gonna go back to hiding again.
Yeah, overall, Marlins catchers, opposing base runners, 16 of 19 stealing bases against the Marlins.
So let's bring in our press box report coming straight from Truist Park, the one and only, the beloved, the cutest member, second cutest member of Fish Stripes, Isaac Kazoo.
Who's number one?
Isaac. Oh, obviously it's Alex Krutchuk. Come on.
Man, I agree. How's it going, guys?
Talk to us. First, tell us about the trip over there. Tell us everything that's going on in the park.
Well, I wasn't expecting to hop on so quick, but fantastic ballpark, fantastic energy in the clubhouse, obviously, as always, and beautiful press box. I don't want to look like such a kid, but it's a fantastic press box.
Ooh.
Great view of the ballpark. And yeah, so if you guys want to get into these injury updates, I think the biggest thing we asked Skip pregame about Sixto, and he said velocity reports have been that velocity is way up, which is delicious to hear. The plan is to keep it quiet, but Brian Hoeing is here in Atlanta, and he will start tomorrow. And that's about it, unless you guys have any other questions about the injuries.
How's the press box?
I just said it's very delicious, Kevin.
How are they looking at BP? Marlins and the Braves. Anything?
Well, I mean, it was a pleasure to watch the Braves take BP. Acuna hit a few into those. De La Cruz hit a couple halfway up the bleachers and left. It's cool to see BP in a brand new ballpark that you've never been to. So it was nice seeing Matt Olson clear the chop house 3 or 4 times during batting practice. It's an awesome ballpark, and I recommend anyone to come over and see it.
We had a mildly surprising roster move today with Sean Nolan getting his shot in the big leagues. What were your first impressions of speaking to Sean Nolan about his call up?
I don't think you would think he's a big leaguer if a professional athlete if you saw him, walking around the street. But he's a very nice guy. He mentioned that he's been traveling almost nonstop all year. 16 that he's been a part of. I assume he was talking about minor league teams as well. But he got the call last night from the AAA manager. He flew in this morning at 11 a.m. And yeah, he is expected to be the mop-up guy. Skip mentioned that hopefully they don't have to use him too much because that means they're in trouble, obviously. I'll have a little story on that later. But yeah, he's here for the foreseeable future as well. And with Arise, I did just find out it was when he fouled the ball off his knee I think it was the first inning of Game 1 of the Cleveland series. He fouled it off the back of his knee. The seams are still there on the back of his knees, but he's available off the bench today, and he should be there. He should be in the starting lineup tomorrow night.
Yeah. Hold on just a second. Let me get the video of this foul ball for people to see. I believe this was the one off of his leg right there.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was it. And I asked him if he was available off the bench today. It's like, hopefully they won't need me. Hopefully they'll score enough runs. But he is in fact available. And how's the stream without me, guys? It's not all about me over here, guys.
I was going to ask you, how's Eddie looking? How's Eddie? You think he's getting prepared tonight? How do you think he's feeling it going up against this lineup and this a team that's looking for a win like the Braves?
It's funny because the last 2 games that I've covered have been Edward Cabrera starts, and he always shows up, around 3 hours before first pitch. So quiet in his zone, and he's ready. It's going to be a really tough matchup with Spencer Strider. He's going to strike out 20 guys, you'd think, but it's really tough. We asked Skip, this team has struggled in this ballpark since it opened in 2017. He said the usual stuff. He's never been, it's his first year here, so he doesn't know, but it's a really good team. Braves have lost 4 in a row, so maybe it's a good time to catch him, but And I think Eli said it that they haven't lost 5 in a row since 2017, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen today, if I'm being totally honest.
Now that we have you here, give us your prediction for the series. Remember, for everyone, it's 4 games, not 3. MVP could be either team. Hit it with us, Isaac.
I'm going to go with the series split. I like their chances tomorrow and Wednesday. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I like their chances Wednesday and Thursday. I think Thursday, the last day of their series in Atlanta, they always win for some reason. It just seems that way. So I'll go with 2-2, and I'll give my MVP to Gene Segura. I like the outfield. Eli.
I've learned that it is a mistake to like count on slumping players to break out. Always wait until after they get on track before picking them. Otherwise,
yeah, you know what?
you look foolish.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe you're right. Because I just like this out. You know what? No, I don't like this outfield for especially right field. It's short. I'm gonna go with someone else. I'm gonna go with Matt Olson. Safer bet.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Gene Segura.
You were drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I was drinking too much Kool-Aid. But I want to hear what Kyle and Ryan have to say about this Marlins team so far.
Well, I'll say one thing before Kyle can say something in a sec. But what I got to say is that I don't know if you saw, I completely agree with you about the series MVP. I also have Matt Olson. I think I don't have an official stat on that, but I do remember Matt Olson hitting some home runs against the Marlins. And it's going to be he's going to get to face some righties as well. He's facing Cabrera and Sandy, so it's not like there's going to be a ton of lefty-lefty matchups, so we could see multiple home runs in this series from Matt Olson. And then Hoeing's a righty as well, because Hoeing is just to confirm, Hoeing's a righty, correct?
Yes, he's a righty.
Okay, so yeah, so he'll be facing a lot of righties in this series, and the Marlins bullpen isn't like it's filled with lefties, so I like Matt Olson in this as just like a safe choice. And he already has 6 homers this year, 20 RBIs, 913 OPS, and for my series prediction, I'm gonna go with.
Ryan, you could save yours until the very end of the stream.
All right.
I like her. I couldn't agree more, Ryan. And the lefties that they do have in the bullpen, it's going to be Okert, you got Scott, Puck, but I do like Olson as well. What about you, Mr. Kyle?
Now I'm thinking about my prediction, but yeah, I'm not as confident as I think I was going into any of the last few series, just due to the fact that the Braves are the Braves, and it's been a long time since we won the season series against them. It's been probably at least 6 or 7 years, and this isn't a great spot ideally, but all in all, I think the way that we've played this year, and it's reminiscent of 2020. Maybe we'll just go out and win the Hoeing start and lose the Sandy start the next day. It's kind of the way that things go, but yeah, the confidence could be higher.
Yeah. And with that, Isaac, any last notes that you have in the press box report that you want to talk to us about before you go and cover the game?
The Braves have one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best ballparks in baseball, but the credentials are not a bit lackadaisical. I think laminating ours today. I don't even know where to put it. I just put it around my wrist. No, I can't anymore. So I'll keep, wait, I'm an idiot. It's a sticker. I'm an idiot. It's a sticker. Okay, guys. So yeah, that'll go on my shirt. But yeah, no, don't feel the need to keep asking me. I'm just here for the good vibes. I'm gonna go eat something with my dad now. But yeah, we'll be reporting all night for you guys. Edward Cabrera season, and put me down for 7 strikeouts for Cabrera tonight.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, Alex, Isaac was actually getting to me there about asking Ryan and Kyle about the season for the Marlins. That leads me to me asking: the Marlins now 12-10, third in the division. They're over 500. They're looking like a good team. Ryan, what are your expectations maybe in the long run this season for the Marlins? If there's something that they can keep up, with their stars, Sandy injured, whatnot, is it possible for the Marlins to keep up this momentum for the next 145 games?
Well, I do think it is possible, but again, that's a question that I don't feel too confident in answering as a yes or even a possibility, just because, I'm probably the most new fan out of anyone in the whole Marlins Twitter community, I think, because I became a fan in 2019. I was only like 9 years old. Now I'm 13. But so I've only really followed the team extremely closely. This is my third season. But yeah, the Marlins are sitting at 12-10 right now, and I think it's definitely possible. The bullpen, I'm not sure how long this will continue because this is really unexpected. Nobody expected the bullpen to be incredible in 6-0 in one-run games. But and then the starting pitching will get going as time goes on. So that's something to know, that the Marlins are having success without the starting pitching being at what it's expected to be. And the bats, some of the bats haven't gotten going. Gene hasn't gotten going yet. But overall, I do see them as a much improved team from last year because they have gotten high quality wins. It's been the difference. Last year, they started off the season good, but most of their wins were against the Nationals, and we know what infamously happened, especially during the second half of the season. They were just terrible, and they ended up winning only 69 games. But again, playoffs is something that is way too early to talk about, and the odds are still pretty low. But I see this team as definitely a pretty solid team.
Yeah. What was it that made you a Marlins fan, Ryan, in 2019? Was it Isan Diaz hitting 173 that year? Was it Adam Conley blowing up games in the bullpen? That's a strange year to turn over. That was a
Jazz.
If I had to say one thing that I can remember is not Adam Conley. It's actually Wei-Yin Chen, because whenever I would go to games,
even worse, dude.
Whenever I would go to games on a Sunday afternoon, I would usually go to the Sunday afternoon games with my dad. I believe I went to like 7 Sunday afternoon games that year. Like most of the games I went to were Sunday afternoon, and it was just like a fun Sunday activity. Now I go to a lot of Friday night and Saturday night games. But Wei-Yin Chen would always pitch for some reason on those Sunday games, and he would always come out and just blow games. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was one game I remember he like walked the bases loaded, and then the fans were chanting "Take out Chen." It was crazy.
There were enough fans for that?
My section was.
And that's what leaned you to becoming a Marlins fan, was just watching Wei-Yin Chen and wanting to be a part of that misery?
Well, I was actually a Yankees fan as well at that time. I was half and half. And then for some reason, I just started watching the Marlins more over time. And now I hate the Yankees and I'm just full-time Marlins. But there's not really a specific thing that made me a fan. It was more just going to a lot of games.
Wow. So you must have really liked that 2020 playoff clinching between the Marlins and the Yankees.
That was crazy. I mean, that helped me become a lot more of a Marlins fan because, I was not rooting for the Yankees in that moment, obviously. And the Yankees were already clinched. So even if I was 50-50.
I wanted to go ask Kyle, now that we have all these leaders and wild card teams here, even though it's really early, but can the Marlins also put some way there and jump into the wild card now with an extra team? Do you see the Marlins potentially having to do so? Let's say it's the trade deadline and they're in that race. Do you see the Marlins in terms of that keeping that momentum for the long run, or is it like still the Marlins?
I think it's still the Marlins, but I think we've seen signs that, in 2020 they had a chance to jump on. I mean, we were 14-15, I think, and we jumped on the trade deadline and went out for Marte. And I think this is an organization that wants to go out and try to win. It's going to come down to if they can keep, the one-run magic sort of thing up. And it's a little I mean, I'm a numbers guy, and I look at that minus 23 run differential, and I kind of panic. And I look at Pythagorean wins and all that a lot. But it is the sort of thing where the Marlins are winning 3-2 games and 1-0 games more than a Phillies 7-6 win. I don't think has the same value as what the Marlins are doing. I think it's a little more impressive. And over the course of 162, I mean, it's possible. I think I could see us being competitive come that deadline and making a push. But that's all I really want as a Marlins fan. I've been a Marlins fan for a little longer than Ryan. Unfortunately, I've kind of seen it all. I just want to be competitive at that deadline at this point. I think that's kind of my goal, and I want to see what this team can do because there's some fun guys, and it can be exciting, and just getting to that point is I think the fun part.
Shout out to the Pirates, by the way. Look where they're at, 16-7, riding a 7-game win streak. You got
best record in the National League. Although, I don't think they're gonna keep it up.
I don't think it's sustainable, but it's pretty fun to watch.
It is.
I don't know. They look really nice. All this without O'Neal and Vince
Brian
Velasquez is Cy Young already. I don't know.
He's the fantasy baseball legend right now.
Andrew McCutcheon revival. The fact that he's
Yeah.
having his
That
best
too,
season in a
yeah.
long time.
You ready, Eli, for Drew Maggi? Drew Maggi making his MLB debut for the Pirates.
That's a fun story. Yeah, he's the Sean Nolan type. Where
Yeah.
he's up for every day that he's up in the majors is a blessing.
And with that, we're going to have a blessing for everyone watching. We're going to give you this quick ad, and right after this, we will be finally discussing this Braves Marlins 4-game series with lineups, predictions, and much more. Stay tuned. And we are back. We are now ready to discuss the series at hand. The reason why everyone is watching, tuning in. 4-game series between the Marlins division rival, the Atlanta Braves. For tonight's game, we had the pitching matchup of Eddie Cabrera going up against Spencer Strider. We're going to have Brian Hoeing later in the series on Tuesday. We're going to have Sandy pitching, and then we're going to have Braxton Garrett against Kyle Wright. Kevin, give me a big preview of this series, maybe not in depth, but maybe the overall preview that you're looking for between this matchup.
Well, this is the first time these two teams faced off against each other. Usually Miami has their number early in the season. I think we saw this in 2022 and 2021 where Miami beat them in the 4-game set. I think that was last season where they took 3 out of 4 very early on in the season. Now the question is, will they be able to sustain that and do it again? They're coming off of 4 serious wins. You got to feel pretty good. Atlanta's won 4 in a row. This could either be a very good time to catch them when they're struggling, or a very bad time to catch them when they know that they're facing Miami, which is a team that they're very, very good against. Obviously, you have Edward out there today. You want to see him kind of still have that control that he had in his last start. Only walked 1, I believe, and you just want to see consistency on that end. Then obviously you have Brian Hoeing. Hopefully, he could just, he gives you 5 solid innings of work if it's a strikeout or ground balls, which we know he loves to do. And then you have, I believe it's Sandy on Wednesday. You just hope to see, that's probably the one game I think all of us here really need to be locked into, especially with Sandy, just to see where his velo's at. If it's not how we saw with Trevor, where it was just career lows for him in velocity. And then finally you have Braxton. You just kind of hope he could replicate what he did in his last couple of starts, where he's been one of the better pitchers for Miami. Their rotation, our most stable pitcher for them. And obviously the tweet up there again, Brian Hoeing officially announced as the starter for tomorrow. Roster moves still needed to be made, so you kind of just assume what could happen there. It could be Nolan, it could be Smeltzer, but just 2 names I'll throw out there as possibilities. But Hoeing has, he deserved it. He really does deserve the call up. This is someone who has put up the highest K per 9 of his career. Someone who's known for his ground balls, by the way. This guy does not barely struck out anyone last year. Not a high K per 9. He's putting up the lowest walk per 9. You got to be very encouraged what we've seen from Brian Hoeing. The velocity is up. I believe it's topped at 96 with the fastball. So a lot to see from Brian Hoeing. Definitely someone who I think we all expected to maybe make the bullpen this year. I saw it as that. I mean, he had a pretty nice spring training, nothing crazy. But it's nice to see that he's getting his opportunity, and you'll probably be up here for a while, especially if he has some success tomorrow against who's pitching tomorrow?
Tomorrow against, I'll have it on the bottom for you. Charlie Morton will be the other pitcher.
Charlie Morton. No. So you just gotta hope Brian Hoeing could keep up with Charlie Morton and keep Miami here. And Truist Park is a nice park for Miami to hit. Some guys have success here. Josh Chisholm is probably one of his favorite ballparks. He's a big Braves guy.
Soler is the one, especially that has monster numbers. He's got a career OPS over 1,000 at Truist Park. Obviously, most of that a member of the Braves in 2021. He was so good there that the Marlins gave him $36 million based largely on that production that he had there. And he played extremely well his first series back in Atlanta last year. I vividly remember that. He had a nice revenge series early last year when he returned and got his World Series ring over there. One thing I wanted to mention about Hoeing, as awful as he was last year, he was so awful. A 12 ERA, only 6 strikeouts in the 12 2/3 major league innings that he pitched, but only one of those was a start. And the only start was against the Dodgers on very short notice, right, to fly across the country at a time when the Dodgers were playing like the best team in baseball. That was his only start. And from there, they kept him in the bullpen down the stretch. This will be a more normal start for him, a lot less travel involved, considering he was just with Jacksonville, and that's a short commute to Atlanta, comparatively speaking. Kevin noted his velocity and the fact that it's translating into more strikeouts than he had last year. And he's facing a Braves team that offensively isn't firing on all cylinders right now. I'll throw up the lineup really quickly that they're using tonight, for example, because it should be pretty similar tomorrow, we think, if I can find it. They are thin, especially at shortstop and at center field. I mean, they're playing Sam Hilliard almost every day, and he's performing pretty well, but he is Sam Hilliard. They're playing Ahir Adrianza almost every day because they're down a couple shortstops due to struggles and due to injury. So with the end in the middle of their lineup, Eddie Rosario, Marcell Ozuna, both of them have been terrible this year. This is a lineup that is extremely top heavy at the moment. It can be pitched to. You can get a lot of swings and misses against them and some soft contact. So this is, all things considered, a much more favorable situation for Hoeing to come up. As you said, they have a vacancy in this rotation with Trevor going down what could be a pretty long-term absence. He has to rest before he's even building up as a starter again. So Hoeing will get, I expect, several starts, and it could be more than that if he actually has some success in those first few starts.
Yeah, and looking at these lineups, you mentioned the Braves, really top heavy in here with Acuna, Olsen, Riley, and Sean Murphy. Ryan, when you're looking at these lineups, either the Braves or the Marlins, is there maybe a player or maybe someone at a position that really stands out to you between both of these teams?
Well, I mean, of course, you have to mention Ronald Acuna Jr., who is just a Marlins killer, and we haven't seen him as much lately at his what he can fully do. But going into the season, you know, it's expected to be throughout the course of the season his comeback year because he's actually going to be fully healthy. Because all my Braves friends said that, you know, he still was a little injured last year, and they might have rushed him back a little bit from that ACL injury. That happened against the Marlins, which I'm not going to talk about because, you know, it's pretty controversial. But he's hitting .374 this year so far, 91 at-bats, and 3 home runs. So the power isn't there right away. However, it'll definitely get going. And the OPS Plus is at an incredible 172, which if you want to put that into a comparison, Jorge Soler, who is hitting for power but not average, is hitting 157 on the OPS Plus. But Acuna definitely stands out to me. And then my series MVP, Matt Olson, stands out as a lefty facing 3 righty starters for the first 3 games of the series. And I think maybe we could see Eddie Rosario get going a tiny bit. You know, he struggled pretty much his whole career with the Braves other than that incredible 2021 postseason. He had that, eye problem last year, I think it was. So he was out for a while with that whole issue, and he's never really been fully capable of he's never been playing to what he's fully capable of. But for the Marlins, I definitely think this is the time for Jazz to get going. So I'd say Olsen, Acuna, and Jazz stand out to me in this series.
Yeah, almost the same question there to Kyle. The Marlins starting Avi, DLC, Stallings, Hampson. Do you believe that lineup could potentially, do damage to the Braves, or do you believe, looking at it, there's maybe something missing for that to be able to beat the Braves tonight and hopefully the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think hitting in bunches is probably going to be a key, as it is a lot of times for the Marlins. Getting a guy like Soler or Avi going where they can put the ball out of the ballpark or go gap to gap is nice. But I think it'll be fun matchup wise. I think Bryce Elder on Wednesday, is that right, against Sandy?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's young gun, 23. It's all righties, so matchup wise, I guess you would have preferred if Joey Wendell could be back a little quicker. But Garrett Hampson's heating up, so that might say the same. That's why, not to spoil my series MVP, I think Jazz has a chance at a good series. I mean, there's no lefties in this lineup outside of Jazz, I don't believe, as of today. The righty aspect is certainly going to be a factor in this series. If the Marlins can get to the bullpen, maybe. This rotation's been really, really good, so it's not going to be easy. This offense hasn't been great. We'll see, but bunching hits together, I think, is going to be the key.
We were talking about this yesterday on the Spaces that, at some point expect to see Jesus Sanchez in the lineup. And if there's any series that it's time for him to get it going, it's this one. I mean, all righties, it's your time to do what you have to do. Show that you still have something left in you at this point, because at this point, you're just waiting till Miami has another lefty available to bring up, and he's probably gone.
Yeah,
it does not speak. Does not show great in their confidence in him that he's not playing tonight against a righty. Like, it's not that. It continues to be very complicated with both him and Avi almost struggling at the same degree, but Avi finally doing something productive in the last game. Yeah. So maybe that was enough to change the decision one way or another. I was hoping to see a lot of Jesus playing tonight, not just this series. The next 6 games are all against right-handed starters for the Marlins in this series, and against the Cubs. I thought this would be a good opportunity for him to sink or swim, to find out if above all else, the issue with him this year, he's actually getting on base at a decent clip, but he's not hitting the ball with the same authority. He's not hitting the ball hard at whatsoever. He has 2 extra base hits, and I remember one of those was that very lucky Sing-I ground ball down the third base line that turned into a double. This would have been I want if he's not playing tonight, you hope he is playing at least 2 of the remaining 3 games in this series to find out what they got in him. Otherwise, if they just don't trust him whatsoever to be in the lineup, then you really do have to have that difficult conversation about whether he should be on the team at all at this point. It has been an extended struggle for him dating back to pretty early on last year.
Well, I think something I want to mention is that an aspect of why Sanchez maybe is still here is that Don Mattingly isn't the manager anymore, and Skip Schumacher is new to seeing Jesus Sanchez, so maybe he thinks that he has not seen Jesus Sanchez at a full and thinks that he deserves to give him a fair shot. But if Don Mattingly was still here, obviously the team would be a lot different where it is. But just Jesus Sanchez wise, if Mattingly was still here, I think Jesus Sanchez would be gone by now.
Wow. Were you going to mention Kev?
I forgot.
By the way, I think Ryan just hit the nail on the head with that. 100% agree with him on that. That with Skip Schumacher coming in, I don't think he thought that Jesus Sanchez really got a fair shot. Even though he did get a lot of plate appearances, and just like Lewis Brinson, I don't.
But this is the side by side of obviously Jesus last year and this year, and those are the last 2 Brinson seasons.
Why do you have to do that, Eli?
Because the numbers line up very closely. They really do.
I remember when I wanted to talk. All right, Eli, do you think there's any chance that if they DFA Sanchez, he somehow slips through waivers, or 0 chance of it at this point?
He slips through waivers. That's a good question at this point. The thing is, because he struggles,
he's so bad.
He struggles to stay back really a full calendar year. He was so good the first couple weeks of last season, and then from there on, the numbers look even worse if you just start with the end of April last year going to now. It's just an extended stretch where he's not you could put up with it if there was a little bit more game power in there. If he was hitting home runs as frequently as he did back in 2021, and that is disappeared, and they tried him in center field, and that would have certainly raised his value as a player, but we know how that went. It went pretty poorly. So he's a corner outfielder that relies a lot on his bat, also just because his base running is a bit of a negative as well. The fact that the decisions he makes on the bases, he made more outs on the bases last year than any player on the Marlins, despite being a pretty good athlete. They've given him a pretty long leash. I know expectations were extremely high for him. There were conversations in Marlins Twitter at this time 1 year ago about Jesus and Jazz in the exact same sentence. They were the same. They were in the same category of building block players based on what they had shown. And since then, they've obviously gone in very different directions. I'll expand on this more once we get a little bit closer to it happening. But with Joey Wendell progressing towards a return to the roster and bringing an additional left-handed bat on there, and with some of the other role players on this roster like Garrett Hampson and even Yuli Gurriel having their own value in part-time roles, if Jesus is not one of your top 13 players on your position player side, and you're a team that's focused on trying to improve this year, you don't have any minor league options. Like, it leads you to this point where eventually a pretty tough decision is going to happen. So I would love to see him actually get this week to play a lot more than he has been to really find out what he's got left. So to me, it's confusing to me. And I would say I'm kind of pessimistic on his future with this team if he's not even playing much against all these righties that they have lined up coming in the next few days.
Yeah. And I mean, especially if someone like Hampson continues to perform the way he is, it may be an easier decision to, just DFA Hampson, because especially DFA Hampson, DFA Sanchi, Hampson could provide you the defensive versatility. So can someone like John Birdie. Those guys could play the outfield. We saw Hampson, I believe, play a couple games in spring training at center. If you ever need to sit down, jazz the game, or put him as a DH. And then obviously, I mean, if Joey Wendell comes back and performs decently well to the point, where he could be a stable piece in the lineup, you feel pretty good about DFAing Sanchez, and that's that. And you hope that he somehow passes through waivers to see if he could, work on whatever he needs to in AAA Jacksonville. Where, I mean, obviously it's worked for Burdick, so maybe it can work for him.
Yeah. And with that, I want to go ahead and mention, we talked about this earlier in one of our meetings with Fish Stripes meeting. Dylan Lee. Eli, you wanted to bring up former Marlin Dylan Lee. He is probably right now the best reliever for the Braves. If I can get his stats really quick for Dylan Lee. In 11 appearances, 11.1 innings, 12 Ks, 3 walks, has yet to give up an earned run. What do you love about Dylan Lee so much, Mr. Eli?
Let me see if I can find this article that I wrote on him in 2018 when I interviewed him. Hold on. Give me a second to pull this up. This was so long ago. Back when he was just being converted into a reliever, the Marlins drafted him with the idea of being a starter. He wasn't really highly regarded coming out of the draft. He wasn't really performing particularly well as a starter originally. When they decided in 2018 to have him focus on relief, and he had back-to-back good years in the upper minors as a reliever for this team. Not really overpowering fastball velocity or pure stuff at all. This is me when I interviewed him back in 2018 and wrote a pretty big feature about him. A very quiet guy who was very quietly released by the team in spring training a few years ago, picked up quickly by the Braves. So this was in, 2021, right before 2021 spring training. It made no sense why they just cut him when they had club control over him. He wasn't on the 40-man roster. They could have just assigned him to AAA, gave him a shot. I think that speaks to how little they believed his stuff would translate to the majors. Very memorably, he made his debut at the end of 2021, and he ended up pitching a World Series game for them. Do you guys remember that? He was an opener for a World Series game.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
And he pitched one inning during that World Series.
Was?
Yes. And since then, that was because they're kind of running out of arms. But then last year, he established himself as a legitimately good middle reliever. 46 games, 50 innings, 59 strikeouts. Both the ERA and the fielder independent pitching in the twos. He allowed less than a base runner per inning. So far this year, as you mentioned, even better. The fact that one run, an unearned run allowed in 11 and a third innings pitched for Dylan Lee, who all of a sudden is now a high leverage reliever for them. He is pretty close to the top of the hierarchy for the Braves bullpen. And the Marlins just let him go for no particular reason 2 years ago. To see him pan out this way, I guess the Marlins can rest easy now, knowing that their bullpen that they've built since then is very deep and pretty good as well. That being said, it would be even a little bit better if they'd simply held on to this guy who was drafted and developed by the team. And now that this is a 4-game series, it's almost a guarantee that the Marlins are going to face him during this series, if not once, potentially even twice. Above all else, I just feel really happy for this guy, Dylan Lee. He was not ever hyped up as a prospect at any point until he reached the big leagues. And now he is on track to like build a pretty considerable major league career for himself. So above all else, I'm just really happy for this guy.
And just to mention the only other reliever that's formerly a Marlin, Nick Anderson, who I believe it was a minor league deal signed with the Braves, and he's looked pretty good, at least from what I've seen. I don't have the stats right now in front of me, but I know
He has
he's
a
on that
4.22
team.
ERA, Kev.
Never mind. What's his FIP?
Let me see this.
FIP is a little more important sometimes.
His FIP is 220, looking more encouraging.
Now we're
from that
talking.
aspect.
Kev, you're pulling out the FIP.
I usually like to use.
What's
I
a
like
Woba,
to use
Kev?
FIP. Woba, I don't use Woba that much. I used it a little last year, but well, I don't think anyone cares about the stats right now. But yeah, he's on the team, and then I guess Ozuna as the only other former Marlin, but we won't talk about him.
I think I wanted to mention before we get into predictions. Obviously, Eddie Cabrera going up against the Braves, but how do you think the Marlins are going to fare against someone like Spencer Strider? We know Isaac mentioned that Strider could strike out the entire lineup 2 times, 3 times over. He has that good of stuff. Ryan, let's go to Ryan here. How do you think this lineup would fare or is going to fare against someone with the strikeout capabilities of Mr. Spencer Strider?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I think my Wi-Fi glitched out, or that
It
might
was
have been
him.
you.
It was
It
him.
was
Okay,
He was
okay.
asking you how
Just-
the lineup will fare.
When in
against
doubt, just assume Daniel.
Okay, just making sure.
Hey,
But
I'm the host here.
anyways, I'm gonna be brutally honest. I am worried. Spencer Strider is great. He's only 24 years old too. I'm looking at his Baseball Reference right now. So far this season, a 2.45 ERA and already 36 strikeouts. If we're talking the stat that we're talking about right now, 36 strikeouts in 22 innings. That's incredible stuff from Spencer Strider, and 238 career strikeouts in 156 innings. He's got some of the best stuff in Major League Baseball, and he could be one of the best overall pitchers in Major League Baseball as he develops, because he is only at the younger side of 24 right now. Brutally honest, I think the Marlins are going to struggle against Spencer Strider. This is a team that obviously the back end of their order has been striking out a lot. Jazz has been striking out a lot. And the story with, I know Sanchez isn't starting this game, but we will see him. Well, what am I saying? Sanchez, not Jesus Sanchez, because he's not starting this game. But if we're overall talking like just the whole Marlins team against Spencer Strider, it's going to be tough because this team does strike out a lot. But I just think they're going to have that not home run approach, and they're going to have to try to just get the bat on the ball.
Something I want to mention about Strider is that I don't think Miami has seen him yet as a starter. They saw him as a reliever last year. So this team still hasn't seen Strider as a starter. And this will, I think, be the first time that will happen, because when they did do that doubleheader in Miami, they did not see him. He did not pitch. So this will be the first time we're seeing Spencer Strider make a start against the Marlins, a full start, unlike his relief appearance. I think that's the case. So it'll be very interesting how he goes up against the Marlins. And the only reason I remember that is because of the Chris Rose rotation that Miggy Rowe was talking about Strider.
Yeah, they got very lucky. The fact that Strider was in the Braves rotation for most of last year. And last year, they still had the old scheduling format where you face the Braves in 6 separate series. That was a pretty fortuitous bit of scheduling. Not so lucky this time around.
Yep.
Yeah. And Strider signed a contract recently, right? I believe he signed,
he signed a big extension.
Yeah, 6 years and 75, was it? 75 million, but the club option on the end of it got a lot more guaranteed money than Sandy did, even though this was just his first full year.
Yeah, that's a great move from the Braves.
I mean, the Braves do this all the time. Look at Sean Murphy, look at Acuna, Albies. They do this with all the guys. So
if only the Marlins could be like that.
One day.
If the Marlins were like the Braves, Jazz would be locked up by now, probably.
Maybe.
I think he would. Michael Harris played less games than
Michael
Jazz.
Harris is another one who got extended.
Yeah, and I guess quickly on Michael Harris, we should note that he's been out for several weeks. It looks like they're just going to miss him as well, where he's about to start a rehab assignment, but he won't make it back in time for the series. That's why center field is a big question mark for this Braves team at the moment because they've been
Is it
patching it
Pilar there
together
right now?
without Michael Harris. What
Is
about
it
him?
Pilar? Kevin Pillar's playing center field.
Pilar and Sam Hilliard.
Yeah.
So tonight it is Hilliard.
Not a bad platoon, I guess.
How was
For the Braves.
Von Grissom been doing? Because I know they had high expectations for him, and he's not in the lineup.
He was the favorite to like be their starting shortstop out of spring training, and surprisingly was passed over for Orlando Arcia. I know this Orlando Arcia is on my fantasy team, and he got off to a good start, and then Arcia got hurt. So they called up Grissom again. He's not quite playing every day. He's on the roster. We'll see him in the series, but not playing every single day.
Yeah, he's slashing 273, 314, 303, 617. No homers, 13 RBIs.
We already put that on the screen, Noah.
There's 3 of us though.
I'm
Yes.
1 month away, just to be clear. I got 36 days, so I'm almost there.
Kevin still has 8 years.
Yeah, we got a couple of years left.
But with that, I think it's a perfect time to go into predictions. Nice, lengthy predictions. 4 games for everyone to remember. 4-game series. It can either Marlins win, sweep, whatever. And your MVP can either be from the Braves, Marlins. And with that, let's get that video, Eli.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
And quickly, let me show the our super subscriber predictions. I took Ryan's out of this, so not to spoil it. These are some of the other ones that submitted it early enough ahead of time for me to include it in here. Every single series you can pick alongside with us, even if you're not on the stream, by subscribing to Fist Stripes on Twitter. A lot of series splits in here,
Lovely,
as you can see. Yeah, that is the safe way to go with a 4-game series, and this is the first 4-game series since the opening series that the Marlins have done. These are an example. A lot of our regulars picking it here to also get everybody on the same page. What the top of our leaderboard looks like, if I can find it in here, combining between the staff and the stream guests and the super subscribers. Kevin has the sole possession of first place, and we have a big tie for second place. And I think Daniel, for the moment, is just out of view, but Ryan is in here as well.
Andy,
So
what's
keep track
happening,
of this
bro?
on the site as well. So both the series winner gets you points, and picking the series MVP could be from either team that gets you points as well. So
Do you have the video of my Soriano appreciation loaded up?
It was not a very
we talked
interesting
about
video. I made a production decision to just not show it. And we'll just
Yeah, it was such a
resume
good video.
with the show. So let me very quickly get the right backgrounds on here so that we can send it out later. And then I'll remove this, and then I'll cue up our little background music going pretty softly.
Get ready, Kev. You're leading off again.
Yeah. So now go ahead, one at a time. Go ahead, Daniel.
All right. First off, Mr. Kevin Barral.
I will go on a limb and say Marlins take 3 out of 4. And the MVP is going to be Josh Chisholm Jr. He usually gets it going in Atlanta. I think he'll do it this time.
All right. Next up, Noah Berger.
I'm gonna go with Marlins take 3 out of 4, and for the brand, Brian De La Cruz is the series MVP.
All right. Kyle.
I'm gonna go split, and I'm liking that Arias is out of the lineup, so I'm gonna go with Jazz for a series MVP. I'm joining Kevin.
All right. Mr. Eli.
I'm going with a series split, sticking with that. Although I have to change my MVP pick. I had Jesus Sanchez. The fact that he's not even playing this first game, that's a pretty big concern with me. I'll go Jacob Stallings as my series MVP.
Whoa. Okay. Now let's go. Well, let's do myself. I have the Braves taking this series 3-1. Coming off 4 games in a row, losing streak, getting swept by the Astros, to coming for revenge. And my MVP, I'm gonna go with Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy's my MVP. Ryan?
All right, save the youngest for the last. I'm going with the Braves winning 3 out of 4. As much as I want to say the Marlins win 3 out of 4 or a split, I don't want to get over optimistic, and I've predicted them to win the last few series. And I already said it earlier in the stream, but for those who are new to the stream, I have Matt Olson winning MVP because he is facing a ton of righties.
All right.
And
That
he's
is
new.
our predictions.
I like the music.
Yeah, copyright free and pretty intense for people to see it. finishing right here at 7 o'clock. I appreciate the Braves pushing back the start time to 20 minutes after the hour instead of 10. So it gives me a little extra time to collect myself and make sure that we're tuning into this. And I assume a lot of people are going to be tuning into the Heat game instead with a lot higher stakes for the Heat and the Bucks game 4. I'm going to have multiple screens going as well, obviously.
Go
All
Heat.
right. And with that, as always, for myself, for Eli, for Kevin, for Noah, for Ryan, for Kyle, for Isaac doing the Press Box Report, this has been Fish Stripes Live presented by La Pop, LAPOP, and always go fish.